Hey, welcome to Outsmart Your Guitar. Glad you could join us. We are going to be discussing the circle of fifths, and we're going to do this over multiple parts to keep it simple and straightforward so that you understand it once and for all. Okay, so let's just get right to it. And be sure to like and subscribe to Outsmart Your Guitar along the way. So what exactly is the circle of fifths? The circle of fifths is a visual diagram that helps you understand the notes of the scales, particularly the chromatic scale, because there are 12 tones in Western music. It also helps you understand major and minor keys. It helps you understand scales. It helps you understand the perfect fifth relationships. As you look at the circle, you see as you go clockwise around the circle, you're going up a perfect fifth with each note, and we'll get into all of this, right? So it's really a great device, and it helps you understand how to build chords as well as understanding what makes up a given scale. So we're going to break this down and make it really easy to understand. Now, some things maybe you already know, just look at it as a review. And for those of you who are learning this for the first time, remember, you can always rewind and listen to a description again and again until you understand it and then move forward. Okay? So let's get to it. What you see on the screen is the 12 tones in Western music. It just happens that we're in the key of C as our starting point. That's the very first note. So you see C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and C in the octave. So on the guitar, you're quite literally playing every single fret between the first C and the second C, and that's called chromatic. And it is the chromatic scale. Let me demonstrate on the guitar so you are clear in understanding what we're talking about. All right, here you see the tabbed out version of the chromatic scale just as before. We're going to start on C, C sharp, D, D sharp. Now I'm just going to move my little finger up to E and then stretch back to F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. And you can keep going 2 octaves up to C. And you do the same thing in reverse. Slide your first finger. And that's the chromatic scale over 2 octaves. It's pretty straightforward stuff, but remember, every fret is a half step, right? So you're playing everything. And that's why it's called chromatic, because it means to play everything. All right? So pause and play through this for a couple of minutes just to kind of get yourself comfortable with it and call out the notes. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and C. You only need to do 1 octave. And you've got it written down in the written material so you can look at that as you go over it. Okay? You heard me mention major and minor keys earlier. Well, just to do a real brief overview to show you the difference between major and minor, I'm going to use the C chord and demonstrate that a major key starts with a major chord in the 1 position, the tonic, right? And we're going to use C. So the notes of the chord are also assigned numbers. So if we look at the C as 1, because that's our tonic, the root tone, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, and G is 5. Well, I'm going to stop there because we've covered all the notes of the C major chord. C, E, G, 1, 3, 5. You may have heard somebody say, yeah, well, major chords are spelled 1, 3, 5. And this is why. 1, 3, 5. C, E, G. So a major key song sounds like this, for example. Pretty happy sounding. All because our 1 chord, the main chord, the key chord, C, is major. Conversely, minor key songs generally start with a minor chord. Now, a minor chord is slightly different than a major chord because we're going to flatten the 3. When you flatten a note, what you're saying is you are lowering its pitch 1/2 step. Remember I mentioned that each fret of the guitar is 1/2 step? Well, we take the 1, 2, 3, and we flatten it. We lower it 1/2 step, 1 fret to E flat. Now we have 1, which is C, flat 3, which is E flat, and G, which is the 5, right? So 1, flat 3, 5, C, E flat, G. So now we play a minor key song starting with a minor chord. And it gives it that sad feel and sound. Okay, I thought I'd just cover this real quick. We'll get into major and minor keys a little more later on. I just wanted to cover this to make sure that we're clear. Okay? On the screen right there, you see the circle of fifths. Now, we talked about perfect fifths. And what you'll notice when you start at 12 o'clock, looking at the diagram, we have C. And then you have a little arrow pointing to G. And that's a perfect fifth, because if you look at the scale and count up from C, playing through the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G. It's the 5th note of the scale, thereby showing it's a perfect fifth. Now, in G, you see we go leaping to D as the perfect fifth. If you start with G, you have G, A, B, C, D. D is the 5 tone, the 5th pitch of the G major scale. And so you see D going to A. Well, if we start with D, E, F, G, A is the 5 tone. And so it continues beyond that. Go ahead, test it yourself. Grab your guitar and play the major scale in C, G, D, A, and keep going through E and B and so forth around the circle, and you'll see it works every time. Okay, a little sidebar here, talking about perfect fifths, okay? So we know that the C and the G is a perfect fifth of the C using the scale. So we play the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have the C is the 1 and the G is the 5. That creates a 5 chord. You've heard of those and probably used them a lot. And you can also add the octave of the root. So 5, 1, 5, 1. And so a lot of progressions are played using just 5 chords. Right? And that's one of the cool things about the circle of fifths. It helps you understand that if those are just single notes, the C and the G, you can put them together because they're a perfect fifth apart, and you have the 1 and the 5 of the chord, and that's a 5 chord that you can play. Just thought I'd throw that out there to show you here's where the circle of fifths can be very useful in using and creating chords, which we'll get into much more as we proceed through this series. Each station on the circle of fifths, if you look back at the previous diagram, represents a note, a chord, and a key. So again, let's break it down. You know what a note is, right? So we're just going to play a single note here. What's this? A C at the 10th fret on the 4th string. And that's a single pitch. And you know what a chord is too. So we'll just play the C right here, right? And basically, it's a C chord. And as you can see on the screen, you've got 3 notes, C, E, G. That's it. No matter how many strings you play, and how many times you duplicate a given pitch, it's only going to be those 3 notes, right? G, C, E, G, C, E. Only C, E, and G being played for this whole chord, right? The C is the tone center, all right? It's the one tone. So that is the tone center of the chord. And if we're talking about keys, it is the key center as well. The E, as we discussed before, is the natural 3, and so giving it the major identity. The G is the perfect 5 tone, also called the dominant tone of the scale, that further anchors the sound of the chord tied to the root. Gives it more body, all right? Now, in music, we define a key as the tonal center of a piece of music. The melody and harmony will revolve around this tonal center, which is simply a single note. And we'll stick with C for now. So on the far left, you see C, the first note of this thing. All right? And this single note is also given a name, as you see, called the tonic. And it is given the scale degree designation of 1, which I've also mentioned before. Okay? Staying with C, the notes of the major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, and then we're back to C. Here on the screen, you see the major scale. Starting on the 6th string at the 8th fret, with your 2nd finger, you play through it like this. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And then you can keep going, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And that covers 2 octaves, all right? The most common types of scales in Western music are major and minor. To retain the characteristics major or minor sounds, scales in most keys require accidentals, sharps, and flats that will give the scale the desired sound. Each key has its unique pattern of sharps and flats, and we'll get into that more later. Let's talk a little about intervals now. An interval is merely the distance between one note and another given note. All right? So we've talked a little about the fretboard of the guitar, that each fret is considered a half step, but it could also be considered an interval because you're changing a note, even though you're only maybe sharpening a note, raising the pitch, or lowering the note, flattening the pitch 1 fret. It doesn't matter. It's still technically an interval. But let's keep things simple for the moment and stay with the major scale. On the screen, you see the diagram we have on the left, C, and then C to D is a major 2nd, C to E is a major 3rd, C to F is a perfect 4th, C to G is a perfect 5th, C to A is a major 6th, C to B is a major 7, and then C to C is considered an octave. All right? So let's take a look at what that means for you as a guitar player. Here it is on the guitar. Remember, our key center or our tonic is C, right here at the 8th fret on the 6th string. So we're going to play through the major scale, C to D, that's your major 2nd, 1, 2, right? 1, 2, 3, C, D, E. So E is your major third interval. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, C, D, E, F. F is your perfect fourth interval. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C, D, E, F, G. That's your perfect fifth interval. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, C, D, E, F, G, A. That's your major sixth interval. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. That's your major seven interval. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, or C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C octave interval. And there it is on the guitar. So it's important to understand these intervals, okay? There you go. All right, I'm going to put a pause right there because I don't want to overwhelm you with too much stuff, because I want you to study this and begin to memorize it, because it will become important as we go forward in this series. It may not seem to have much context right now, but again, as we move forward, you're going to take the pieces you're being given now and be shown how to use them, how they work. This becomes in handy, especially when you're learning music by other people, because as you're learning the progression, which is just a pattern, you'll begin to see the possibilities that you can anticipate what the next set of chords might be. Because the circle of fifths shows you harmonic relationships and even motion, sometimes that helps you to intuit what is going to be the next thing going on in the song as you learn it. And so that makes learning songs easier. Okay? All right. Again, I want to thank you for letting me teach you this stuff. I do most appreciate the time you spend here learning what I have to offer. It means the world to me because this is what I do. And I want to share my knowledge with you to help you become the guitar player you're striving to be, even the musician you're striving to be. All right? So when the next lesson drops, I'll see you there.